welcome to the Week 2 edition of the Monster Pod here on Lineups. Matt Brown, Alex Christensen, you know him as Alex. I know him as Noops, and he is here with me in week number 2 and moving forward as we run through each and every NFL game, give you our thoughts, our leans, and if we want to shoot one of these games into the sun because we hate it, we'll do that as well. Noops, so glad to have you here, man, and very excited to run through all these games with you.
Absolute pleasure, Matt. It's the best time of the year. Honest to God, week 1 feels like Christmas. We're rolling. I thought week 1 was a lot of fun. Last night's Thursday night football game, I guess unless you bet the Commanders, is a pretty good time as well.
Yeah, it is. It is going to be one of those weeks where we try not to overreact too incredibly much to anything. So we'll do the best we can to give you the opinions here on each and every one of these games without letting week number 1 influence us too much. We do have priors. We have to stick to those as long as necessary. And then, of course, we'll move off of those as these teams decide to be better, worse, or somewhere in between. So let's kick things off here. Patriots and the Dolphins. This is currently sitting anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 out there in the market in favor of Miami at home over the Patriots. 43 to 43.5 is our prevailing total. Miami, of course, one of those teams that maybe we have to try and pump the brakes and not overreact because they did look like maybe the worst team in all of football in week number 1 of the NFL. They're not as bad as they looked, but maybe maybe they are pretty damn bad, Noobs.
It's really hard to tell because for me it starts with, if you've watched any Mike McDaniel's press conference the last 6 to 8 weeks, it really seems like, I don't know, he's out to lunch. I'm not sure. I've never seen an NFL coach so hopeless, kind of when they're talking through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you put all that together, what we saw last week, maybe the Colts defense is pretty good. Maybe what we're looking for from them offensively, the skill positions were great. Daniel Jones just has to go out there and kind of not mess things up. Now, looking into this week, seems like the ultimate bounce back spot, the ultimate buy low spot, because the Patriots coming into the season really talked up. A lot of people really excited about what Drake May was going to be able to do coming into his second year. Mike Vrabel, a new head coach. We always know how powerful that could be, especially with how bad the coach was last year. But I keep looking at this spot, and it's Dolphins or pass. Now, a lot of betting, and sports betting specifically, is about holding your nose and eating the stinky cheese. And this cheese might just be a little bit too stinky, but it's the perfect bounce back spot. We see this every year. Miami in September, it's really hot down there. We're going to see the Patriots in their black or dark blue uniforms sitting on the sunny side of the field, slowly baking throughout the game. So it's Dolphins or pass here, but I think I have to pass.
Yeah, I look at this. I imagine this will be a pretty popular teaser leg. It'd probably be tough for me to talk you off of that. We are looking at a fairly low total here, and we did see Miami look pretty inept on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know if they completely flip that and turn that around in 1 week's time, and so the odds of them winning at margin might not be all that high. Look, I think there's upside in this New England defense too. I know they went and loaded up in the offseason, and that's kind of where they put their focus, and so I don't know if they're going to get the hell beat out of them in too many games, specifically this week. Probably not one of those. So, yeah, while I don't love – if this got to a full field goal, you might could entice me on the New England side of everything, but it doesn't look like we're going to get there with all that. So
no.
If you wanted to throw that as a teaser leg, I don't hate that. Again, I don't know if Miami completely flips the script here. They got a bunch of injuries they're dealing with. Now we got more off the field stuff with Tyreek Hill. There's just a lot going on there in that locker room.
Yeah, there definitely is. And that's what you don't want to see. Like I said, with Mike McDaniels, it seems like it started over the offseason. Tyreek Hill has not been happy. And Tua Tagovailoa, probably about as healthy as he's been coming into a season, just absolutely awful last week. So, again, as we talked about at the top of the show, we don't want to overreact to what we saw in week 1, but it feels like we've been seeing this for more than a couple weeks, more than what we just saw in week 1. So hard to trust the Dolphins, even though, again, historically, this is the spot to play them.
Okay, Jacksonville Jaguars on the road at the Cincinnati Bengals. We are sitting 3.5 now across the market in favor of Cincinnati at home. 49 to 49.5 is our total. Now, Noops, there was an expensive 3 available yesterday. I know what was available yesterday doesn't mean anything to anyone watching this right now, but I do, for full disclosure, I thought we had swung too far here on Cincinnati to get this all the way down to 3. And so I played a juicy 3 at Cincinnati at home. That being said, that number is not available as we record right now, so we'll speak in the in the frame of what is out there. And the hook does mean all the difference to me. Obviously, Cincinnati's offense we thought was going to be one of the very best in the NFL, and very well might be. It was not in week number 1. Another one of those teams we need to not overreact to. They're back home. There is no Myles Garrett on the other side. And Jacksonville rolls in after an interesting performance in which they were kind of trying to force feed Travis Hunter. Couldn't really get anything going, Brian Thomas, but then ATN looked like he could actually play again in the backfield. I rewatched that game, Noops, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm getting out of Jacksonville. I don't know what Jacksonville is, so this is an interesting game for me as well.
Yeah, and to your comment earlier about the line, it is obviously a line we don't have anymore, but I think it's important context. This line opened Bengals minus 5.5. The look ahead coming into the season was closer to 6.5. So the market has told us, let's push this all the way down to 3, and that's kind of where the line is. So I think we'll see this probably settle, like you mentioned, at this 3.5. Maybe we get another shot at an expensive 3 on the Bengals, but I think the Jaguars game for last week deserves a little more context. That was another game that got lightninged. You might remember in the Thursday night football game, the first game of the season, Eagles, Cowboys, that game stopped for about 30, 45 minutes. And, basically once they came back, it was really hard for them to find their rhythm. I hate to bring up, a bad beat for anybody who had the over there, but this Jaguars game last week had kind of the same phenomenon. They had to stop the game just before halftime there, and it really did not regain any of its rhythm once it came back. I was surprised, honestly, at how good the Jaguars offense looked despite kind of a funky spot for them. Nice to see them running the ball very well, and I expect them to continue to put up points here. This Bengals defense stinks. I mean, you look at the Browns now, they scored less than 20 points there, but you look at some of the underlying metrics. The pass efficiency was there. They struggled to run the ball, but the Browns offense really isn't designed to do that the way it's set up right now. I think the Jaguars are going to have no trouble here putting up some points. I'm seeing their team total at 23.5. I was expecting this to be 24.5, and that really, from a team total perspective, is a huge key number, the difference between that 23.5 and 24.5. So I don't mind the over here. That's another bet that I was looking at. Maybe just a little concerned about the Bengals offense. We've seen in past seasons they struggle to start. Those guys don't get as much time in preseason, so they don't come in maybe in the best form, if you will, to steal a tennis term. But I like the Jaguars here. I think they're going to put up at least 24 points. So I'll take their team total over 23.5.
The other thing that I was looking at here in this one is Travis Hunter receiving yards. It's set as high in the market as 48.5 right now. They say, and if we have to, sometimes we have to believe what they tell us. They say that he's going to play more defensive snaps in this to help out to cover Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Well, if you're playing more defensive snaps, I know he was able to do it in college, but it's just a completely different animal. You're not going to be able to go out there and run a bunch of routes and then go cover Jamar Chase. Like, it's just not going to be able to happen. And so I wonder if that affects how many offensive snaps, because again, especially those just like force feed stuff that we saw last week with him, the bubble screens at the line, just any of the stuff to try to get the ball in his hands. I wonder if that does affect him. Now, more snaps is relative. He only played 6 defensive snaps, so more snaps could mean 8, and more it could mean 9, and then this whole angle that I'm bringing up here doesn't mean anything. But if we're talking like, he might play 15 or 20 defensive snaps to try to help out on the to cover T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, well, I do think then at that point it affects his offensive production. So I'm kind of stuck here. I haven't put it in the account quite yet, but 50 yards for a part-time player is a lot of yards. And so that's why I'm on the fence, Noops. I haven't been able to get the under in the account quite yet, and because I don't know what to believe when they say he's going to play more defensive snaps this week. But that's at least something to think about, I guess, if you're putting together. Maybe it's the same game parlay or something or whatever, and you want to tell a story, and the story is in your same game parlay that Travis Hunter does play a ton on defense and doesn't play as much offense.
Yeah, you look at last week, only 8 targets, actually a pretty solid target share as you think about that, but well under this, had less than 40 yards with those targets. You look, a lot of those throws were underneath throws, and like you said, I mean, the Jaguars have really talked out of both sides of their mouth all summer, all through preseason here about how they're going to use Travis Hunter. I think that you're right on here. It's definitely under or pass. I think if they are hinting towards the idea that he's going to play more defensively, it definitely should be an under there. I'm wondering if this early in the season, though, maybe we save our powder for another week and just try to learn, what is the rhythm of this going to be every week? Can we trust the Jaguars? They say he's going to play defense. Do we not trust them? I think this is going to be a great week to learn about what his role is going to be going forward.
Cleveland Browns on the road at the Baltimore Ravens. This is your largest spread of the week, 11.5, 12 in favor of the Ravens at home. We are looking 45 to, actually there's a 44.5 out there, 44.5 all the way to 45.5 here in this one. Yes, the Ravens did blow a double-digit lead last week. It's to the Bills. I don't really hold that against them. The Bills are going to break a lot of people's hearts this year. They have Superman at quarterback and all that. Ravens still at the very top of my, one of the top teams in my power rating, so I'm not really worried about that too incredibly much. The Browns, of course, go and hang with Cincinnati. Can't figure it out, can't quite get it home, but we're able to wreak some havoc with that defensive line of theirs. Noops, it's a game that's going to be very popular in Survivor. I don't blame people for wanting to play the Ravens in Survivor, specifically if you're in, I don't know, the Grandissimo and you put $100,000 into your Survivor entry. Hey, I get it. You just want to move on and get that done. I don't love these type of games, specifically early in the season too, so it's a pass for me. Big-ass spread and, week number 2. I don't know motivations. I don't know whatever. Are we going to get to a point where if you're up a ton, now you're going to rest Derrick Henry? All these things like that. So I don't know. It's not my type of game.
It is a tough game, like you said, especially early on in the season. I do think this is obviously the clear pick in Survivor. They're the only double-digit favorite this week, and if you look throughout the rest of the season, the Ravens are only going to be double-digit favorites maybe 1-2 more times, and as you look at those out weeks, there's a lot more other options in those future weeks. So I'm actually going to be using the Ravens in most of my Survivor entries here, especially some of the smaller pools where going against the crowd is a little less important. As far as the game goes itself, I would really be surprised if this game lands anywhere near the kind of the base numbers. When I look at this Ravens team coming home off that bad loss, I think we're going to get a really good effort for them. Thought about playing maybe them in the first half, first quarter, stuff like that. But if I'm looking at this, I'm trying to buy off these numbers. So if I'm going to play the Ravens, instead of playing 12.5, looking for minus 13.5. That's plus 108. That's a really nice number, especially given our base is kind of sitting here at 11.5. Ravens minus 20.5 even is plus 255. I think that if Baltimore is really going to play well here, they can really run away from this really run away from this Cleveland Browns team that struggled offensively even against a bad defense. It's going to be a much tougher challenge. However, if the Ravens are looking ahead a little bit, not taking their division opponent seriously, which you've seen them do the past years, maybe this Browns defense is as good as they looked last week. Maybe Joe Flacco and them can find a way to keep it close. You're seeing Browns plus 10.5 and a cheap minus 105. If you even think the Browns can keep it closer, plus 7.5 and plus 135. I think that's the way you try to attack this game. All that said, I don't have a great angle here. I do kind of think the Ravens really put one on the Browns, but just going to use them in Survivor and not really have any individual game bets.
Yeah, this as an aside here, I'm glad you brought up just depending on the size of your pool. I'm in the big 18,000 person one at Circa. I probably won't use the Ravens this week, even though I think it's likely to be the most popular pick. But it's a deal where I do like a couple of other ones, and I have a pretty decent risk tolerance and stuff. And so, I will try to zig where other people are zagging. But like you said, if you're in a smaller one where basically if you can just survive, you're going to win. You don't need to be thinking game theory and all of that near as much. And so, I know you do a great article over at Lineups each and every week on Survivor, and just if you're listening for the first time here, a lot of this comes into how big your pool is. A lot of it is, how sharp are the people you're playing with. I mean, if it's a bunch of dopes that you from work that you play with, and they're all stupid, then just play the chalk every week. Someone's going to get cute, and they're all going to fall out, and then you're going to win the thing. So, knowing your contest is about as good a piece of advice as we could give.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we'll talk about some other options as we get further down the board here, but you hit the nail on the head. If you're in a really small pool, you don't have to worry about having too many multiple winners towards the end. Now, in a really big pool, let's say you go chalk the whole way through, it's kind of like a daily fantasy where you want to make sure that your lineup, your Survivor picks in this case, if you will, are a little bit different than everyone else, because there's nothing worse than getting all the way to the end and having to split that big, beautiful pot of money with 9-10 other guys.
Yeah, 44.5 rush yards on Lamar Jackson. Yet another one that I lean towards the under here. In a game, you're a double-digit favorite. I don't think they're going to be – I mean, he very well could scramble for 45 yards, and so my point is will be moot. But, I don't know how many designed runs we're getting for Lamar here in this one. at double-digit favorites, unless the Browns are just really, really pesky and like that defense is just like good enough to kind of keep them in games. But I'm with you, Noops. I think this kind of feels like a run out from the Ravens side of things. And dude, you're not running your MVP quarterback for no reason in this thing. So again, I pretty strong lean towards an under on 44.5 yards for Lamar in that one too. So these are all ones that might end up in my account in some way, shape, or form, some sort of fashion if I'm doing same game parlays or whatever it might be. New York Football Giants on the road at the Dallas Cowboys. This is anywhere from 4.5 to 5.5 in the market currently. 44.5 your prevailing total in this one. This could be a survivor option for people out there with the Dallas Cowboys as they are home against this Giants team that are, I guess you could like, there could be a rock fight between the Giants and the Dolphins as to who had the worst offense in week number 1. They could sit there and just, have a fight about that. And then, Noops, I think the troubling thing for me, and you're talking about a guy that had a plus 6.5 ticket on the Giants, so that was a loser for me last week, where my whole point was, okay, let me make the case here for the Giants was, even if Russ is cooked, this defense is so good and this defensive line is so good, they're going to make life terrible on people and yada, 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 and they're always going to at least be close in games, and maybe Russ can figure out how to sneak in a garbage time touchdown and we cover these numbers. The third lowest pressure rate in all the NFL in week number 1 was this defensive line for the Giants. Third lowest. Like the one thing that I was hanging my hat on is they didn't do it at all. And so I've got to like see it with my eyes. Like maybe is there a world that exists with all that talent that maybe this defensive line isn't as good as I thought? So again, I'm not going to overreact here, but now I am in the, maybe I need to wait and see because maybe I did overrate this defensive line coming into the season.
It is really tough to, again, like you said, coming in, all the information, everything we know tells us with Brian Burns, with Dexter Lawrence, adding Abdul Carter, this Giants defensive pass rush should be really great. Now, going back and looking at that game, I think a lot of that spoke more to Jaden Daniels, someone who is really difficult to pressure, someone who moves around very well. Coming into this specific game, I think we're going to have a little bit of a bounce back spot against the Cowboys line. Not quite as good against a quarterback in Dak Prescott, not nearly as mobile and agile. And what I see here is really a game that should be pretty stinking ugly. I mean, the Cowboys come out, they score, I think it was 3 of their 4 first drives against the Eagles, maybe even 4 of their first 4 drives against the Eagles, and that's it. Basically just sort of packed it away. We're unable to really get any more points here. And unless Dexter Lawrence, goes out and spits on somebody like Jalen Carter did, I think the Cowboys are really going to struggle to run the ball this week. You're not going to see Javonte Williams get 1-2 touchdowns early in the game here. At the same time, like you said, the Giants offense just looked terrible. I mean, Russ at this point, it's check down. Occasionally he'll try to air one out, but I'm not even sure he has that in him at this point. So everything I look at this game screams under to me. 2 division opponents know each other very well. 2 defenses that line up very well against the offenses here. The total sits at 44.5. I had this closer to 41.5, maybe 42 as I try to regress towards the market here a little bit. I'm just going to take the under and try to make some money on what I think should be a really ugly football game.
Let me throw my tinfoil hat on here for you, and you can give me a yes or no on this. We just blindly play all the Russell Wilson unders because Jackson Dart ends up getting inserted in the second half. What do we, because that was not a ringing endorsement of Russell Wilson by any stretch. One, it's like, we'll evaluate. And then it's like they come out and say, okay, we're going to play him. And then he clarified, we're going to play him this week. We're going to start him this week. He did not say like he is our starter. It was like, we are going to start him this week. What do you think the chances are we see Jackson Dart this week?
I like this quite a bit. And what I would say is I would even add on to this idea. So if the thought is the Cowboys come out, really beat up on the Giants early here, Russell Wilson gets benched at halftime, you take all the Russell Wilson unders, your pass attempts, your pass completions, your pass yards, passing touchdowns, put those all together and slide in some Cowboys alt spreads in the first half here. They can be a little tough to find. Again, you're going to have to do a little bit of work here on this one, but look for Cowboys like first half -6.5, -9.5 if you can find it, something like that. And I just love where your head is here, Matt, because this is what you have to do with some of these parlays here. And I know parlay can be a dirty word from a betting perspective, but a parlay is only as good as the bets you put in there. Yep. They're all good bets. The parlay just makes them better. And again, everything you're telling me here, when I think about that narrative, I really like this. Now, to pour maybe a little cold water on it, I don't know if we're going to see the Giants again in week 2 in Dallas against a divisional opponent try to bring in Jackson Dart here, kind of in the middle of what would hypothetically be a disaster at this point. But I like where your head's at. I think there's definitely going to be some value here in the coming weeks of trying to do something like that. Take all your Russell Wilson unders, take the opponent first half alt spread, put them all together. At some point, we're going to come out of halftime, and Russell Wilson will not have a helmet in his hands.
I got all 10 of my entries through in Survivor. I think I'm going to put 4 or 5 of them on Dallas this week. You start to look at their future value. I'm not going to say it's none. It's not great. I mean, yes, they have games against the Jets and they have a game against Carolina, but those are on the road. Do you want to be backing this team on the road in Survivor for your Survivor life? Probably not. And you start looking way out, and I just don't love really any of the other spots here for Dallas. And so it's kind of like I either use them on some of the entries this week or I just burn the team, and then I'm down a team, right? I'm not going to use them again at all. And so I'd rather not just completely burn a team when I do have an option to use them. So it's like you said, sometimes you got to hold your nose. I think I'm just going to have to hold my nose here on Dallas. Not a team I'm in love with, but I think here against this version of the Giants, I might just have to roll the dice here. And so I think Dallas is going to end up in like I said, 4 or 5 of these entries of mine.
Yeah, I like what you're thinking. As we said, kind of, and we keep reminding you throughout the show, just think about the size of your pool. But Dallas is a really nice contrarian pick this week. I don't think we'll see very many people, again, even contrarians, starting to look at this. It's a good angle.
Rams on the road at the Titans. This is currently 5.5 in favor of the Rams on the road at the Titans. 41.5 is our total here in this one. Matthew Stafford, Pro Football Focus's #1 graded quarterback on the week in week number 1. You didn't see the results necessarily on the scoreboard, but apparently, according to their eyeballs, Matthew Stafford played a very, very good game for the Rams. The same cannot be said for Cam Ward, though. I saw glimpses. There were some passes he threw where I go, okay. Not like the stuff where... Not like the stuff we were trying to say for Anthony Richardson last year. It wasn't like when he was where it's you were just amazed by his rocket arm. It was no, I was amazed by Cam Ward's pass. Everything about it looked really, really good. I think this Titans team by week 10, week 12 might be one that we're kind of oh, all right, they've come around. Maybe I don't want to pick on this team anymore, but it is still his second game in the NFL here, Noops.
Second game in the NFL and first game in front of the home crowd. It should be a really difficult spot, but I kind of agree with you. I thought Cam Ward looked pretty solid. He made some really nice throws, a couple rookie mistakes here or there, but in Denver against arguably the best defense in the NFL, that's to be expected. What confused me and concerned me was nobody caught any of these nice balls Cam Ward was throwing. I mean, I just off the top of my head can remember at least half a dozen throws he made that should have resulted in first downs or big gains, hit guys right in the hands, and the ball is on the ground instead of moving forward here. So I agree. There's some optimism for Tennessee in the near future. I am concerned about the head coach, though. Generally, Matt, when it comes to being a head coach, you try to hire someone that knows all the rules of football. And it turns out maybe Mr. Callahan learned that, in fact, the forearm does equal being in bounds there. It's just really disheartening to hear a head coach in the NFL not understand something like that. But I agree. I think Cam Ward here, even if it's maybe not with this group of guys, at some point is going to have some success in the NFL. So everything in this game sort of pushes me towards the Rams, except the spot. It's just a really tough schedule spot for them to have to go back across the country basically to play in Tennessee, having to come off that really rough game at home against the Texans. I think we saw them give a lot of themselves in that spot. The under seems like a decent look to me, but again, the Rams offense at points looked pretty solid, and this Titans defense is nowhere near as good as the Texans defense that they played last week. So lean towards the Rams, lean towards the under. I think the Rams, again, a little bit of a contrarian survivor pick this week. Not quite sure, again, how contrarian that's going to be. I know a lot of people are lining up to fade the rookie here, but don't mind using the Rams a little bit in survivor. Lean towards them. No official plays in the game, though.
Yeah, I'll have some entries on the Rams as well. I have 2 that are available to use with the Cardinals. I'll use the Cardinals for those 2, and then the other 4 I think will be on the Rams. It's just you don't love jump up and down about using a team on the road and all the different stuff like that, but man, you are getting a rookie quarterback in his second start, and the Rams defense is good enough to, I think, to capitalize on some of those rookie mistakes. And so I'm with you there on that one. I actually have a pretty strong lean to the Rams too. This is the one that I have actually like put in the account a couple of different times and not actually hit the submit button, but it's like, man, that's under 6. It's under 6. This seems like the right move. This seems like the right play. I don't know. I think this is one that will probably end up in the account in some way, shape, or form. I just don't think that I don't think the Titans have what it takes to hang with the Rams currently. Buffalo Bills on the road at the New York Football Jets. This is currently anywhere from 5.5 at Circa out to 6.5 at some of the other books out there. 46.5 is the prevailing total here in this one. Of course, the big comeback win for the Bills. Josh Allen nearly throws for 400 yards. He does it all. He is Superman. And then the Jets go out and, dare I say, kind of blow it. I mean, I thought they were going to win that game against the Steelers. Couple of little, boneheaded plays on the defensive side of the ball, some blown coverages, and next thing you know, the Steelers squeak out of there with that one. But all in all, fairly positive, I guess, what you would have to say, what you saw from the Jets there in that one. What say you here in this one?
Yeah, everyone's going to remember week 1, the big Bills comeback, but I think the most surprising result was that Steelers-Jets game flying over the total. I mean, I think that thing closed under 40. We saw close to 70 points in that game. Just absolutely wild. And when I thought about the Jets coming into the season, Matt, I think what they did organizationally, they made a great decision. Our team isn't as good as we want it to be. So instead of trying to play football like everyone else, let's just simplify this. We're going to have a very good defense. Well, we should have a very good defense. We'll talk about that in a second. Offensively, let's just try to run the ball. Let's get a quarterback in Justin Fields. Let's put him in a position where he's making 1 or 2 quick decisions, and that's it. We're not going to try to have him hanging back, doing 3, 5, 7-step drops, anything like that. I was really impressed with the Jets and the way that they were able to move the ball up and down the field against the Steelers defense, again, that was supposed to be pretty good. Now, on the other end, the Jets gave up quite a few points, but as I went back and looked at that game a little bit, the Steelers did have a couple things break their way. I mean, the fumble on the kickoff basically sets them up. I think it was a 22-yard field. That's really tough. I don't hold that against the Jets defense, of course. Some penalties and things that sort of broke their way. And you've got the Bills coming down into New York, again, off that huge win at home. It's got to be a little bit of a letdown spot. I was really surprised by how poor the Bills' defense was. I mean, the Ravens could run the ball pretty much whenever they wanted. Whoever they decided to put on the field was picking up 4, 5, 6 yards a pop. Now, maybe things are a little bit different with the Bills knowing they don't have to be worried too much about the passing game. I still think the Jets are going to be able to move the ball, put some points up here. And honest to God, I can't believe I'm saying this. Let's bet the Jets. Give me the Jets plus 6.5. I'm definitely going to be sprinkling a little bit of that money line. We know the Bills, even at their peak, have struggled to play in New York. It's just a really tough spot for them at a place where, again, as we go back to Survivor, I would absolutely jump in front of anybody trying to pick the Bills this week. It's a road game. It's in division. It's really tough. I'm going to take the Jets. Again, I'll take the points plus 6.5, a little sprinkle on the money line. I'm seeing plus 250 there. I think New York is live to upset Buffalo.
Yeah, I put a little bit of the over in my account, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that Fields just brings so much variance to the game that I kind of like that from an over perspective. Like, he's going to do some stuff that wows you, and I think put some points on the board for the Jets. And while we didn't see a ton of mistakes in week number 1 against the Steelers, it is still Justin Fields. I don't think he's magically fixed, and so with that, I think there'll be one play, maybe a couple plays in which he almost hands points to Buffalo as well. And so we get some free points on that end, and it's still Josh Allen and then moving the ball. So under this kind of the key-ish number there of 47 at 46.5, I do like a sprinkle of the over here in this one. I was pleasantly surprised by the Jets. I will fully admit, I was pleasantly surprised by the Jets. Maybe they let me down here in week number 2 and go back and remind me why I was not super high on this team heading into the season. But until they do that, let's go ahead and ride that one. So go Justin Fields. I'm going to be out there rooting for you, buddy. Chicago Bears on the road at the Detroit Lions. This is 6.5 in favor of the Lions at home. 46.5 out to 47.5 is our total. So, Noops, we talk about the not trying to overreact too much to performances. Well, here's a couple of teams that are playing each other that we have to throw into that bucket here as the Bears come out and look like the Super Bowl winners after the first drive and then go absolutely stone cold the rest of the entire game. And the Lions were almost a no-show, but as we saw from Thursday Night Football, were they, or did they just run into a buzzsaw in the Packers? So that's something we have to try and figure out as well. Detroit back at home now. They were outdoors up there in Green Bay, now back at home in the Dome. What do you say here about the Lions hosting the Bears?
I think you nailed this. It's two teams that had a really rough start to the season. Outside of those first couple drives, I thought Caleb Williams looked very limited. I've never seen a quarterback just double pump and so much. It's a lot of what we heard Ben Johnson concerned about over the offseason. Caleb Williams has got to get the ball out quickly for that offense to work. And we saw it a little bit in the first quarter, but as the game went on, I think he got back into maybe some of his bad habits, if you will. So we'll see. Ben Johnson, he's had, again, another entire week to try to work through with Caleb Williams. I'm sure there was a lot done in practice this week to try to get Caleb to get the ball out faster, but it's a big moment. He's got to go back to Detroit, where he was the offensive coordinator, where he was the guy that sort of put all this together. Now, does that give him the keys to success? Does he know every single thing that Detroit's going to want to do? Does he have the book on Jared Goff where he knows what he's going to be able to do to kind of mess with him? So a lot of different factors at work here, but I think overall, kind of like you hinted at, based on what we saw from Green Bay in week 1 and last night, maybe the Lions weren't as bad as we thought. So as I start to look at this game, again, I don't think either offense, neither defense look good. I think we could really see some points here. I know even with Aiden Hutchinson back, we thought the Lions defense was going to be a little bit better, but if Caleb Williams can really move around well and negate a little bit of what that pass rush can do, I think we might see a bunch of points here. My only problem is maybe it's just the Lions scoring points, and we don't have enough to get to the over. So lean towards the Lions. I think they're going to look a lot better this week in a much more comfortable situation against a much worse football team. And lean towards the over. But again, just a little concerned that maybe both of these teams have not taken the step forward we expected them to.
Yeah, this seems like the spot where I should go, okay, the Lions are a much better team. They're back at home. This is where we play the Lions. But I guess there is that little bit of concern for me. Is this offense just not going to click under, or at least currently not going to click with Ben Johnson out of town? Like you said, he obviously knows the ins and outs. Is there anything that he's going to be able to add to this that'll help neutralize what Detroit's going to do, all that? We don't have to play every game on the board, so I'm going to give this one a hard pass. That said, one of the ones I'm going to watch maybe the most heavily, because I need to figure out if Caleb Williams looks like he did for 85% of that game again this week, Noops, I think there's going to be some real problems in Chicago. It doesn't matter how good that offensive line is. It doesn't matter how good the weapons are around him and all that. Like, if you're missing wide open receivers, if you're taking way too long to throw the ball, you're doing all that stuff. I mean, it's a team that I was fairly excited about with the new coaching staff, with the revamped offensive line, the what they did on defense. Like, I was kind of excited about them heading into the season, but we know the most important position in all of sports is the quarterback, and if it all revolves around him. And if he can't play, it doesn't really matter what I think of this team. Like, if he can't play, then they're not going to have success.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, it was just wild. You go back and rewatch that game for the first drive. I mean, he made one of the more impressive throws I've ever seen a quarterback make, rolling out to the right through a 30-yard ball, basically on a tight rope. It looked like a third baseman throwing out somebody at first. It was incredible. But you get later to the game, he's got all the time in the world. Can't get the ball within 5 to 10 yards of DJ Moore, who, by all accounts, looked open from really either side. You could throw it short, you could throw it long, you could throw it left, you could throw it right. Couldn't hit the ocean. So have to very much be concerned with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I am. I'm hoping that this was not the norm from him, and not even that I'm not a Bears fan. I'm not whatever, but I just, this is. I just hate like everyone's narratives always just working out, and it's just like everyone hates every first round quarterback. It's like, they're all going to be busts. Like everyone wants like every quarterback to be a bust, and I'm like. Right. Okay, listen, they're not all going to be busts, all right? So they're not all busts, but who knows? Maybe Caleb Williams is in fact going to be a bust in this one. But I'm going to take a hard look at that game. That's a very interesting one for me. Seattle Seahawks on the road at the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is currently 3 across the board. 39.5 to 40 is our total here in this one. And like you, I went back and rewatched that game against the Jets, and this Steelers. Like, it was a decent box score for Aaron Rodgers, but after you go and you rewatch it, you realize, there was a couple blown coverages. It was a guy that fell down. There's like all this stuff. So like, he wasn't he didn't look like he was totally cooked, but it wasn't as great as maybe the box score and the numbers painted. And then Seattle was given every opportunity in the whole world to win the game against San Francisco. I have no idea how in the world they did not figure out how to win that game, but they enter this one 0-1 as well. What do you see here as the Steelers host the Seahawks?
Yeah, this is one where, from a Steelers perspective, I'm going to try to block out what I saw in week one and go back to my priors. As far as the Seahawks go, it's kind of what I expected. The defense should be spectacular for them. We know how good Mike McDonald is in terms of coordinating there. Offensively, they lost some pieces. It's going to be limited there. And again, the Steelers team, like we've talked about a couple times already, they put up 30-plus points against a Jets team that should have a decent defense. But as you start to go through and look at some of the numbers there, a lot of the underlying things weren't as good. That leads me to the total. I'm seeing a total of 40. I don't know why this starts with a 4. I had this closer to 37.5, 38. I think, again, this is going to be an ugly, slow game between two teams that are going to be happy to run the ball. They're going to be happy to take some time off the clock. I think, like you mentioned, the blown coverages that we saw from the Jets, I don't expect to see that from the Seahawks. A really solid defense. It looked good in week one against the 49ers team that, like you said, I think they probably could have beaten here. So I look at this game. This is going to be one I like to say, guys, you don't have to watch it if you bet it. So put that under ticket in, put something else on, and just go ahead and check and make sure we won when it's all over.
Yeah, I wonder, it'd be a non-traditional teaser leg, obviously. But the cool thing about what's going on with the sports books now, you don't have to take the full 6 if you don't want it. You can go out and just play an alt line parlay in a 39.5, 40 total. If you decided you wanted to take Seattle up to 7.5 and this one up to 8, 8.5, whatever it might be, and play like sort of an alt line parlay type deal, which is your own version of a teaser. Historically, games with totals this low and you're getting 8 points or 7.5 points or whatever it might be is the exact right play to play. Of course, you need a dance partner if you're going to do that, so you have to love another leg because you got to get both of them home. But I think that might be an angle somebody could also play if they wanted to play this game. So San Francisco 49ers on the road at the New Orleans Saints. This is currently 3 across the board in favor of San Francisco. It is 40.5 to 41 is our total. So Noops, here's what was going to be maybe everybody's slam dunk survivor play of the week has gone by the wayside very rapidly as the 49ers have put George Kittle on IR, going to be without Brock Purdy for 2 to 5 weeks. There are other injuries that they are dealing with as well at every single level on the field, offensive line, wide receiver, defensive line. Everything has gone wrong that can go wrong for this team here in the first 2 weeks. New Orleans, who I still have power rated as the worst team in the NFL, looked, dare I say, somewhat competent last week. I mean, I know it didn't equal points on the board, but didn't look like a complete dumpster fire in that or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe this game might end up being interesting.
I'm not quite that optimistic, but there's a lot to learn here. So, as you know, as a lot of people know that do kind of what we do, I put out a Survivor article Sunday night talking about how great the 49ers were for a pick this week. Let's try to get them in, guys, before everybody gets hurt. Well, I woke up Monday morning. It turns out everybody was already hurt. Yeah. It's just an absolute mess here. We know Kittle is out for a couple weeks. It looks like Purdy is going to be out for a while. So how much do you trust Kyle Shanahan, a guy who has shown us that it helps for him to have a good quarterback, but maybe he could be a little bit quarterback agnostic in terms of his ability to succeed. I think the Saints, like you said, everyone's kind of coming away a little more impressed, but I wonder if that's the joy of low expectations. We expected the Saints to just be so stinking bad that the fact that they were anywhere close to a reasonably performing football team gets us excited. I think the defense looks solid, and that's kind of what we expected coming in. This could be a really ugly football game. I tend to think that Kyle Shanahan's going to find a way to make it work with Mac Jones, and I can't believe I just said that on a recorded video that Mac Jones is going to maybe do something good, but you look at the other side and Spencer Rattler. This might be the worst game of the week. It's just really rough. Lean towards the under. I think there's probably some value in the 49ers at this point. If this thing gets below 3, I'll definitely grab some San Francisco. But for now, this is what I'm happy to let go.
Yeah, I'm not even going to I might even watch this game. What are you really gonna pull from this, right? I mean, if anything, it might just cloud what you think about these two teams. So I might not even do that. Carolina Panthers on the road at the Arizona Cardinals. This is all the way out to 7 at circa 6.5 everywhere else. 44.5 there. Of course, this is in favor of the Cardinals at home over the Panthers. Like I said, I have a couple of I didn't use the Cardinals on a couple of my entries. I used the Cardinals last week in Survivor for the majority of the entries. I do have a couple that I don't. So the couple that I can still use them, I'll be using the Cardinals. Love them coming back home against this Carolina defense that I'm not even talking about the offense. Like, I think Bryce Young might be able to figure it out. So I'm not even worried about that. Like, the defense is so incredibly bad that I'm not blinking an eye at them being able to pull an upset here, Noops. Like, I see James Conner running for 80 yards. I see Trey Benson running for another 60, 65 yards. Kyler Murray's going to do his little scramble thing for another 35 yards. I mean, like, I don't see how they stop them. Am I seeing this game wrong?
No, I don't think that you are. The Panthers, one of the worst defenses in the NFL coming into the season. And as I mentioned earlier when we talked about the Jaguars game, I don't think we realized how bad they were. Remember, that game against the Jaguars stopped about halfway through for lightning. We saw how much that really throws everyone off their rhythm. And I wonder how many points the Jaguars could have put up if they got a full 48 minutes here uninterrupted. So it's a great spot, I think, to use the Cardinals again. If for some reason you missed using them last week, get them in this week because it might be the last time you feel really good about using them. They do have a home game in a couple weeks against the Titans, but again, as we talked about in that game, maybe Cam Ward's a little better than we thought. Maybe by the time we get there, we're not as excited to take the Cardinals, who might only be 3.5-point favorites as opposed to the 6-7-point favorites they're expected to be in that game at this point. So against this Panthers team, again, if you didn't use the Cardinals last week, get yourself some Cardinals this week. And this is regardless of pool size. I think big pool, small pool, this is a really solid play. You're going to get to use a Cardinals team that's playing, decent football. I wish I was a little more inspired in their performance last week, but I think they're going to be much better than this Panthers team that really, as someone, I had a little bit of optimism about Carolina. I knew the defense is going to be bad, but if Bryce Young could be even 85% of what we saw in the second half
you and me both.
It should be a fun team. So it's a difficult spot. Lean Cardinals.
Yeah, but all offseason, I was like, you know what? This team ain't going to be as bad as everybody thinks. Like, after 1 week, I kind of look like an idiot, but maybe not. I'll tell you a couple of props that I threw into the account. I took over 33.5 rush yards for Trey Benson. He was getting carries anyway last week, even with a game state that wasn't necessarily all that favorable for them. We think this is going to be a very favorable game state for them back at home. He might be as good or better than Connor at this point. And so I took over 33.5 and did a little sprinkle on an anytime touchdown, which is like just under 3-1 for him as well. Even if he's not siphoning off carries throughout the course of the game, which I think he will, if we get to the fourth quarter, again, if this game is going like I think it's going to be going, he's going to be getting all the carries, and then maybe he can punch one in for us as well. So a little sprinkle on the anytime touchdown, and then over 33.5 on Benson rushing yards. So those are also in the account. Denver Broncos on the road at the Indianapolis Colts. This is 1 to 1.5 in favor of Denver. It's 43.5 your prevailing total. So I'll admit, I did get the sneak peek at what Noops was doing. This has absolutely nothing to do with us agreeing on this. This was one of the very first reactions that I also had to this game. And Noops, essentially, I was very high on the Broncos. I have Broncos AFC West tickets. I have Sean Payton Coach of the Year tickets. I have over win total tickets. I have all of that. One bad performance cannot get me off of these priors. Now, they can prove me wrong over the next 2 weeks, and by week 4, I've got to be like, all right, maybe I was wrong. I got to do something here. But this seems like a pretty big overreaction to what was a lackluster performance in week number 1, mainly just by Bo Nix. The defense was still good.
Yeah, this is the biggest overreaction spot to me. Coming into the season, we expected the spread to be closer to 4.5. It opened 3.5. We're down to 1.5. And as near as I can tell, nobody on the Broncos got hurt. I continue to scour injury reports to try to look for some reason this game has moved so much. I mean, let's think about what the Colts just did. They beat up on a team in Miami that is having a lot of locker room trouble. Again, Mike McDaniels looks just depressed in some of these press conferences. Tyreek Hill constantly has more going on off the field than he seems to on the field. The Dolphins defense, terrible. Absolutely what might be one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So, do we really think that the Colts and Daniel Jones are going to be this high-powered offense that we saw last week? Absolutely not. This seems like a rude awakening spot for me and the Colts. I love the Broncos. I played a -1.5, and I'm going to sprinkle some alts here. I'm going to play some -5.5, some -9.5. I think the Broncos absolutely open one up here against the Colts team in Denver. I know that game looked a lot tighter than it should have last week, but I don't think they're going to turn the ball over 4 times. I don't think they're going to decide to throw a Hail Mary on 4th and 9 at the end of the game instead of punt the ball, which, again, I'm still not sure why the heck that happened. So
you and me both.
Overreaction.
What the hell was that? Like I said, I have Sean Payton Coach of the Year tickets. I'm going I guess I can just light that one on fire now after that decision. I'm like, oh my God, dude, what are you doing? But yeah, that to me, look, Bo Nix, the worst graded quarterback in week number 1, according to Pro Football Focus. He is not the worst quarterback in the NFL, I can assure you. So he'll get it a little bit better. Now, what I will say with the Colts, and the only thing that's a little bit scary with this is while the ceiling is lower with Daniel Jones, it does raise the floor for this team. And I think we saw what Daniel Jones is capable of last week, which is those little intermittent over like middling passes and stuff like that. Like he should be able to do that and get out of a bad situation into a better situation. Maybe he's a little bit better than what we know of Daniel Jones and all that. More than anything in this one, I think I learned last week, Tyler Warren, no matter what, is the truth. Like he is going to be awesome.
Fantastic.
Like, yeah, he is going to be awesome. 37% target share last week from Daniel Jones. So Daniel Jones already loves him. So DFS players, like all of that and all, if you're stuck between person X and person Y, Warren is going to get the opportunity. Now, will that always turn into what we saw last week? I don't know, but like we often bet just on opportunity with these guys. Like we just want the opportunity, and then how it plays out from there. We'll deal with, and I think his opportunities are going to be abundant in this Daniel Jones-led offense.
Yeah, fantasy football is all about usage, and Warren is going to get a ton of it. If you don't have him on your team, get him now before he really starts to pop.
Philadelphia Eagles on the road at the Kansas City Chiefs. This is anywhere from a pick'em to out to 1.5 in favor of the Eagles. 46.5 to 47 is our total. No one cares about a number that I have that you can't get anymore, but I will say, just for conversation purposes, this opened as a 1.5 in favor of the Chiefs. So I have a 1.5 Eagles ticket in my account, a +1.5 Eagles ticket in my account. Again, I know you can't get any more. Who cares? So we'll talk about what we have currently in this one. And so, Noops, in my power ratings, so you and I didn't get a chance to talk a ton before the season. I was a little bit down on the Chiefs heading into this season, I think, than Market was, and there's a bunch of reasons for that. Travis Kelce was a year older. He was coming off career lows across the board on everything. He was always Patrick Mahomes' security blanket. We saw that really not work out last year near as much. I thought that this could only get worse this year. I hated the running back room. I think Pacheco's almost kind of cooked after that injury with him. And then you've got Kareem Hunt. The defensive side lost a bunch of pieces. There was all this stuff that I was like, hey, look, I'm down. They're not going to be terrible. They're not going to be bad, but I'm just down on the Chiefs, right? That's basically where I was with all of that. So me getting a 1.5 it seemed to me even a gift, even though they are on the road, because my power ratings have these teams gapped a little bit further than that. I don't know where you were on the Chiefs coming in and where you were on the Eagles coming in, but a fascinating game here in week number 2.
Yeah, I thought the Eagles were arguably the best team in the NFL coming into the season, like a lot of people. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Chiefs, again, a little bit longer in the tooth, take a step back. I'm trying not to overreact too much to what we saw in week 1, simply because from an offensive perspective, to lose Xavier Worthy that early in the game is devastating. I mean, he is a huge part of what they plan to do. And I think you come in, basically in the first drive, lose him right away. I think it was really hard for them to recover. And I think that's why we saw them be a little bit better in the second half of the game than the first half. But I still don't think that they deserve to be, honestly, even this close to an Eagles team to me that looks superior. Now, Philadelphia, real good ball control game. A little concerned with the offense. I thought that Saquon Barkley was struggling to find holes. A lot was made out of A.J. Brown, who just really couldn't seem to find the ball. And any time that the Eagles were throwing was a lot of underneath stuff. They really struggled to push the ball down the field. I think, honestly, not enough people are making enough out of how great Jalen Hurts was last week. I mean, absolutely, I thought the best performance of really any quarterback, including Josh Allen, what he was able to do to bring back that Bills team. I mean, Hurts really put them on the back and dragged them across. I think this is going to be a competitive game. I think the Chiefs will be better, a little bit more rest for them. Basically on having to play on Friday, they'll know coming into this game whether or not Worthy is going to be available. So Andy Reid, one of the best offensive coaches of all time, I think it's going to have things a little bit more tightened up here. But I think this is a great spot for an under. I look at both of these teams. They love to run the ball. Both of them understand the value in salting a game away late. Two of the best bets you could have made last year was second half under when the Eagles have the lead, second half under when the Chiefs have the lead. Well, I don't know too much about football here, Matt, but one of these teams is probably going to have the lead going into the second half, and I think we'll get to see this game salted away. The total's 47. I thought it would be closer to 44. I will happily take the under on what should be, I think, a nice kind of old-school physical football game.
Two things, and again, we don't have clarity on this, as you just mentioned. Don't know if Xavier Worthy's going to play. Don't know if Dallas Goedert is going to play, actually, for the Eagles as well, which is kind of a low-key blow to this team. He's like the dude that doesn't get any of the pub, but it just continues to, like, move the chains. Like, you need that 3rd and 6. Like, Dallas Goedert is like your 3rd and 6 or whatever. So something to monitor there in that one. One of the other things we're going to be looking at here, Noots, is I came in thinking one of the biggest problems for Kansas City was going to be this offensive line. Like, they had to trade away Joe Thuney because they couldn't afford to pay him, and then it's just a bunch of dudes kind of out there right now. Like, 4 of the 5 guys are just average at best, and so how is Patrick Mahomes going to function for the first time with, like, an actual kind of bad offensive line? That's and if Philadelphia might be able to take advantage of that. So that's one of the things I'm going to be really honing into here on this one as well is this offensive line going to be a problem for Kansas City moving forward? And these teams that have strong defensive lines and can get pressure without having to blitz and all that, like, is Kansas City going to be in for some real rock fights? So something that I will be looking at there in that one as well. Okay, everybody, Sunday Night Football, that is brought to you by Bet365 here on the channel. Listen, right now, go in. You can bet $5 and get up to $300 in bonuses. Moneyline bets, spread bets, totals, player props, all of that. You can get up to $300 in bonus bets when new customers bet $5 at Bet365. Go in, download the app, and see why everybody is liking Bet365 and why it's never ordinary over at 365. If you do have a gambling problem, of course, 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 or older, terms and conditions do apply. So, Noops, we have a interesting here Atlanta, Minnesota game, mainly because as we are recording this, we can't say for certain that Atlanta is going to have their top 2 receiving options. Now, both are practicing for the team, which is a good sign and have been practicing all week, but this is a much different handicap if you have Drake London and Darnell Mooney out there than if your number 1 receiver is Ray McCloud.
It makes an absolute huge difference. Drake London, to me, one of the most underappreciated receivers in the league in terms of his ability to run routes, get open consistently. I mean, he made Kirk Cousins look like he might still be alive for 2 years. Penix is going to love throwing the ball, but like you said, if they can't be out there on the field, I just don't know what this Falcons team is going to do against a Vikings defense. It's one of the better units in the league. I mean, they looked solid last week. Now that's against the Bears. I thought if the Falcons here are fully healthy, this is a spot where I think you've got some correlation. So if the Falcons are healthy and they're going to win this game, I think they're going to be a lot of points. So again, assuming Drake London can play, assuming that we'll see Darnell Mooney on the field, Falcons and over to me. That's kind of what I'm thinking here. They're going to have to put up a lot of points. It's really going to push them to have to score. That said, if the Vikings are going to win this game, I think it's going to look kind of ugly. It's going to look like the second half of what we saw last week. A lot of ball control, a lot of J.J. McCarthy being asked to do simple things and make simple throws. Now, he did that, looked very good doing it, but we'll see. I mean, the Falcons defense isn't good here. Again, given the injury situations, kind of lean towards the Vikings in the under, but just too much unknown for me to, give out any advice and feel great about it.
Yeah, I really, really, really want to put the plus 3.5 in the account on the Falcons. It seems like at the very least London is going to go. I can't say I'm certain that Mooney is going to go, but I don't know. Did one off season of knowing that Michael Penix was going to be the quarterback, and did he do extra work with Kyle Pitts? Because Noops, I mean, you're a fantasy guy and play a bunch like I do. I mean, is this like the post hype sleeper situation going on with Kyle Pitts? I mean, he looked like an actual part of the offense last week.
And if you want to drive anybody nuts in the fantasy community, just say Kyle Pitts and step back and watch what's going to happen here. I mean, it's we've all at some point invested in him, had him on our teams, just see the overwhelming talent. I mean, the athleticism, his ability to get open. But he has yet to fulfill it. We saw even more of it in week 1, but I'm not ready to get suckered in yet again.
So I see what we saw in the first half with the Vikings, and I understand the halftime adjustments and then what we saw in the second half looked like, two completely different teams. But that is what kind of gives me pause here, because while I did see what they did in the second half, I also saw what they did in the first half. And I saw what J.J. McCarthy did look like in the first half. And I have all the faith in the world in Kevin O'Connell. I think he's an awesome coach, but maybe there is some growing pains a little bit along the way here with J.J. McCarthy. Another reason why I really want to stick this 3.5 in the account with the Falcons. I guess, Noops, do you think there's any chance we lose the hook if London officially gets ruled in, or do you think that this is kind of baked into this current number? Would this be 4 if we, or 4.5 if we were actually worried about that London was going to play or not?
I think this is a pretty solid number. I think we'll see this again when you get to 3.5. The market is really reticent to move much beyond that. Books are really afraid of getting middle tier, so maybe it will bounce to 3, but I think it'll be a really cheap 3. We'll be looking at plus 3, minus 105, maybe even plus 100. If it stays to 3.5 and London's in, maybe it's still 3.5. But look at it minus 15, minus 20, something like that. So I think the number is going to be pretty solid. We're just going to be concerned about what the juice is.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one too. I think there are a lot of kind of prove it games this week for some of these teams. In Minnesota, prove it to me that you're good. Prove it to me that you're the team in the second half and not the team that you were in the first half. And with Atlanta, hey, Michael Penix, go out there, even if you don't have Mooney again, if you got a less than 100% London, well, prove it to me that you can get it done with a less than 100% London. You still have Pitts, you still have Bijan Robinson. There are ways that you can get it done. So yeah, super excited about this one, but I very, very strong lean to 3.5, probably going to be putting that Falcons 3.5 into the account. Guys, if you have not done so already, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button here on this channel. Of course, we'll be back with some separate Monday Night Football videos, so you'll want to make sure and be subscribed and also have those notifications turned on so those are in your account. Me and Noops are going to be rocking and rolling this throughout the course of the season, hopefully making a bunch of money for you guys as we, Noops, for me, still a feeling out process for some of these teams. I go a little bit heavier starting week 3 and then fully feel confident in the bets about week 4. Like I said, I'm holding on to some priors here, but I'm not the dude that holds on to the priors way too long. I understand that I am smart. I always say this, News, I'm smart enough to know that I'm dumb at some stuff, right? And so if I was way too high on a team or way too low on a team or way too high on a player or way too low on a player, I am okay using my eyes and using my brain and going, hey, dude, you were just wrong. And here we have to make the adjustments and stuff. And so still kind of the feeling out process right here. I always say to people, don't blow your bankroll out in the first few weeks of the season. Still trying to figure out who these teams are. Wait, get a better idea, and then you can go at it a little bit harder. But, yeah, man, it's still very, very fun and a great process for both of us.
Absolutely. And the advice I always give to everybody, remember, the sports books have to hang this big deli menu of odds. We don't have to eat everything on the menu. Take your time. Discretion is the better part of valor. Let's start slow. I know a lot of really sharp professional NFL bettors that don't place a single wager until week 4 or week 5. They really want to see what these teams have. So I know, like I said at the top of the show, it's Christmas, baby. We're back. NFL is everywhere. Try not to let your excitement cost you any money.
Guys, lineups.com for all of the written work as well. Go and find Noob stuff over there as well. And good luck on all your Week 2 bets.
Bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets, win or lose, with Bet365 Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, 21 plus only. T&Cs apply. In-app only.